All right. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good evening. Good afternoon, depending on what part of the world you're at. It is that time. It is time for our weekly business reading club. And today, we're going to do something kind of fun and different. We're going to actually have two readers. Both myself, my name is Eric Wilner. I am a radio host, real estate investor, and certified affordable housing provider out of Florida, South Florida. And joining me today is another certified affordable housing provider, another real estate expert from the Georgia area, Mr. Ron Copeland. Good morning, Ron.
Good morning. Great to be here with you.
It is good to be here with you as well. And so we're going to get started, but don't hesitate to go and send out a couple other invitations to this reading. I think we're going to have a very good reading. It's a great book that we're dissecting here. And what you'll see is that we will read the book and then we'll pause every so often and make some comments. But I welcome you. In fact, I encourage you to make some comments in the chat, okay? Because then we'll come back and we'll take a look at the chat and we'll see what's going on in there. We are reading the book. In fact, let me go ahead and share my screen. So for those of you who don't have a copy of the book, guess what? I've got a copy for you here. In fact, I'm going to also put in the chat. Let me just see here. I'm going to take a copy of the link and I'm going to put that in the chat. Here's the book, Rich Dad's Cashflow Quadrant. And in the chat, which I have over here to the side, I'm going to go ahead and put the link to the book so that if you want to have the link on your computer. Otherwise, Ron, we're starting at chapter 6 today. Is that correct?
No, sir. Chapter 7.
Chapter 7. All right. That's right. I was out 1 week. So guess what?
Page 1. Yeah. Page 149 on the books page.
Okay. Very good. Very good. Page 149. Which, by the way, so that means that we're moving into part 2 of the book. For those of you who might be joining us part way, again, this is the book, the Cashflow Quadrant. I think it's an essential reading book. It is referred to all of the time by people. Number one, the prequel of this book is Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I'm sure you've heard of it. If you haven't read it, it's worthwhile to go back and read it. It's sort of an autobiographical story of Robert Kiyosaki, an extremely successful real estate investor, educator, and now also, has a hugely popular podcast. You can check that out. So I'd even call him a social media influencer as well. And so the reason I came back over here to the cover is I just wanted to do a quick review here. These are all of the Rich Dad, Poor Dad books. And he also has a very popular game, which is I think I call it Monopoly on steroids with a dose of reality. And it's a great game. I used to sponsor games for clients and prospects, investors that wanted to come play the game and then talk about it, because it's a game that you definitely learn by. So in the book, what we covered already are the introduction, the cash flow quadrant. What quadrant are you in? And there are the 4 different quadrants. On the left side of, if you imagine a square, and imagine on the left side, let me see if he has that early on. Here you go. Here's the cash flow quadrant right here. On the left side, and he tilted the square a little bit, but on the left side, you have the E, which stands for employee. Those are people that trade hours for dollars, whether they be dollars per hour or dollars for salary. But when they stop working, there is no leverage and the income stops. Right below it on the square, the next, what many people consider a progression or step up, is the self-employed. It's a small business. Basically, where we're talking about is the one-man operation. You were a corporate attorney, now you went out and hung your own shingle, and you are an attorney, a self-employed attorney, a self-employed baker. Doesn't really matter. This is, again, maybe higher pay. That's what a lot of people go here for, but it's also higher work, higher stress. And once again, just like the E quadrant, when the self-employed person, salesperson, whatever, stops working, they no longer earn income. So there's no leverage on the left side of the quadrant. Now let's go to the right side. The top is the B for business. And business in this sense, he says big business. What he really means is it more than just you. And I had this conversation both on the radio, and I also do a podcast called The 5-Year Career, which you see right over my shoulder, this side over here, and it's all about it's all about the fact that a business is a system. Okay, it's a system for delivering a product or a service for a profit consistently. Okay, that's what a business is, a system. So think about McDonald's, think about a lot of businesses. They basically provide a product or a service or a combination for a profit, and they have a formula, if you will, a system to do that over and over and over again. And, to use the McDonald's example, whether you love or hate the food, I'm not a fan. But the fact of the matter is that you can take a kid right out of high school or still in high school, put them behind the fryer, behind the register, because the system exists and you could plug in any healthy body into that role. So a business, you could walk away from it. If it was your business, you could go take a vacation for a month and it would still be there when you came back, revenue generating and all. Then there is the ultimate quadrant, which is the investor quadrant. This is where you are no longer trading hours for dollars. You have investments, whether it be real estate, stocks, bonds, annuities, you name it, precious metals. These things are generating income while you sleep. They are not affected by your presence, but they make your presence much better. Okay, so the goal at the end of the day, Robert Kiyosaki says, is to have a B to fund your I, so that at some point you can become financially independent. So that's just a brief review and an overview, if you will, but that doesn't give you an excuse not to read the book. And on the contrary, now we want to dive into what all this means and why. So in part one, which was the cash flow quadrant, we spent the time describing the quadrants, which I just did in a few minutes. It talks about the disadvantages and the advantages, or the perceived advantages, of some of the quadrants. Talked about personality style and why people tend to gravitate to any one of those quadrants. The 3 kinds of business systems, and I'll even tell you that the 5 level of investors. By the way, if I were to go back and review chapter 4, 5, and 6 were gold. Okay, they were that good, and I wish I hope that you have seen all of those. But meanwhile, now we're going into part 2, bringing out the best in you. In other words, using the concept of the cash flow quadrants in order to make you more effective, more productive, and more profitable. So here we go. And again, once again, for those of you joining us, if you have the book, we're going to start here on page Becoming Who You Are, on chapter 7, page 149. What I'm going to just do is I'm just going to increase this on the screen a little bit to make it even easier. I just wanted it small before so that we could see the whole pages. So here we are, chapter 7, titled Becoming Who You Are. The real issue is the changes you must go through and who you become in the process. Remember, we're human beings, not human doings. It's not being homeless that matters, my rich dad said. It's about who you are. Keep striving and you'll become somebody. Quit and you'll become somebody, but not the same person. The changes you go through. For those of you contemplating going from job security to financial security, all I can offer you are the words of encouragement. For Kim, his wife, and me, it took being homeless and desperate before I found the courage to move forward. That was our path, but it definitely doesn't have to be your path. As I described earlier, there are ready-made systems that can help you cross the bridge to the right side of the cash flow quadrants literally in 24 hours. The real issue is the change you must go through internally and who you become in the process. For some people, the process is easy. For others, the journey is impossible. Money is a drug. Rich Dad always said to Mike and me, money is a drug. The main reason he refused to pay us while we worked for him was because he never wanted to become addicted. He never wanted us to become addicted to working for money. If you become addicted to money, it's hard to break the addiction. When I called him from California as a grown man to ask him for money, he wasn't about to break a pattern he started me years before. He didn't give us money as kids, and he wasn't about to start now. Instead, he continued to be tough and guide me away from the addiction of working for money. He called money a drug because he observed people who were happy when they had money and upset or moody when they didn't. Just as heroin addicts get high when they inject the drug, they also get moody and violent when they don't have it. Be careful of money's addictive power, he often said. Once you get used to receiving it, that addiction keeps you attached to the way you got it. Put another way, if you receive money as an employee, then you get accustomed to that way of acquiring it. If you get used to generating money by being self-employed, it's often difficult to break the attachment to earning money in that way. And if you get used to government handouts, that too is a hard pattern to break. Don't we see that in society? The hardest part about moving from the left side to the right side is the attachment that you have to the way you're used to earning money, said Rich Dad. It's more than breaking a habit, it's breaking an addiction. That's why he stressed to Mike and me to never work for money. He insisted we learn to create our own systems as a way of acquiring money. The patterns. For Kim and me, the hardest part in trying to become people who generate income in the B and I quadrants is that all of our past conditioning was holding us back. It was tough when friends said, "Why are you doing this? Why don't you just get a job?" It was even more difficult because there was a part of us that also wanted to go back to the security of a paycheck. Rich Dad explained to Mike and me that the world of money was one large system, and we as individuals must learn to operate in certain patterns within that system. And E works for the system, and S is the system. A B creates, owns, and controls the system, and an I invests money into this system. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that a very interesting perspective? By the way, as I mentioned before, I invite you to drop some comments in the chat along the way. Anytime you see an aha or maybe a golden nugget, drop a fire in the comments. And certainly if you have any questions that you want us to discuss, drop it in the chat as well. So thank you. Fernando, for dropping the first fire in the chat. Moving on. The pattern Rich Dad was talking about was the pattern we naturally gravitate to when it comes to money. When a person feels the need for money, Rich Dad explained, an E will automatically look for a job. An S often will do something alone. A B will create or buy a system that produces money. An I will look for an opportunity to invest in an asset that produces more money. Why it's hard to change a pattern. The reason it's hard to change a pattern is because money today is essential for life. In the agrarian age, i.e., the farmer, money wasn't that important because the land would provide food, shelter, warmth, and water without money. Once we moved into cities during the industrial age, money signified life itself. Today, even water costs money, said Rich Dad. He went on to explain that when you begin to move from, let's say, the E quadrant to the B quadrant, the part of you that is addicted to being an E or afraid that life will end begins to kick and fight back. It's like a drowning person beginning to fight for air, or a starving man who will eat anything to survive. This is the internal battle that makes it so hard. The struggle between who you no longer are and who you want to become is the problem. That's the struggle. Rich Dad explained to me over the phone. The part of you that still seeks security is in a war with that part of you that wants freedom. Only you can decide which will win. You will either build that business or you'll go back to finding a job forever. And haven't we witnessed that before? So, Ron, why don't you take over here from Find Your Passion? By the way, Cassandra and Richard, thank you for the participation in the chat. I will tell you, and this is kind of a life lesson that I learned a long time ago, the more you participate, the more you benefit, period. You know, it's kind of like the people in the front row, those are the A students. The people in the back row that don't want to be noticed are the C and the D students, and maybe even the F students that don't last very long. So, Ron, tell me when you're ready.
Yeah, let me take over at 54, but I have a comment here. I read something recently, or was told something recently, and it's talking about patterns. So he said you never lose a pattern once it's developed. You have to replace the pattern. We're also talking about habits and pattern being similar to each other. So you can't lose it. You got to develop something to replace it, which takes action.
That is very true and a very good point. The same way, if you're having negative thoughts, it's hard to not, I'm sad. And then I tell myself, I'm not sad. I still hear the word sad until I'm happy and I replace the bad thoughts or the bad patterns with what I want. It's hard to give up. And that's why he talked about breaking an addiction. All right, Ron, I'll take it over to 154.
Okay.
Do you really want to move forward? This is Find Your Passion, asked Rich Dad. Yes, I said hurriedly. Have you forgotten what you set out to do? Have you forgotten about your passion and what caused you to get in this predicament in the first place? Asked Rich Dad. Oh, I replied, a little startled. I'd forgotten. I stood there at the payphone, clearing my head so I could remember what got me into this mess in the first place. I knew it, said Rich Dad, his voice booming over the phone. You're more worried about your own personal survival than keeping your dream alive. Your fear has pushed aside your passion. The best way to keep going is to keep the flame in your heart alive. Always remember that what you set out to do and the trip will be easy. Start worrying more about yourself and your fear begins to eat away at your soul. Passion builds businesses, not fear. You've come this far. You're close, so don't turn back now. Remember what you set out to do. Keep that memory in your heart and keep the flame going. You can always quit, so why quit now? That's a great saying. You can always quit, you know. And I had a black belt instructor who always used to say, when you get off track, you're not working out, you're not training on a regular basis. Remember, you're only one day from being back on track.
Mhm.
So this is a great point to just listen, set aside the past, move forward. With that, Rich Dad wished me luck and hung up the phone. He was correct. I had forgotten why I set out on this journey. I had lost my dream and allowed my fears to fill my head as well as my heart. I had forgotten my passion. It was now time to make it happen or go back home and forget about it. I stood there for a while, and again, I heard Rich Dad's last words. You can always quit, so why quit now? I decided to delay quitting until I made things happen. Becoming a teacher who owned the system. My fears and lack of success were beating me, and my dream had been pushed aside. My dream was to create a different kind of school system, an educational program for people who want to become entrepreneurs and investors. As I stood there, my mind drifted back to high school. When I was 15, my high school guidance counselor asked me, "What are you going to do when you grow up? Are you going to become a teacher like your dad?" Looking straight at my counselor, my answer was straightforward, strong, and filled with conviction. I'll never be a teacher. Becoming a teacher is the last thing I would ever do. I didn't just dislike school, I hated it. I absolutely hated being forced to sit and listen to someone I didn't particularly like or respect speak for months on a subject that I had no interest in. I fidgeted, squirmed, caused problems in the back of the room, or simply skipped class. So when my guidance counselor asked me if I was planning to seek a career as a teacher following in my father's footsteps, I nearly jumped out of my skin. Little did I know at that time that passion was or is a combination of love and hate. I loved learning, but I hated school. I absolutely detested sitting there and being programmed into becoming something I did not want to be. And I was not alone. Notable quotes on education. Winston Churchill once said, "Personally, I am always ready to learn, although I do not always like being taught." John Updike said, "The founding fathers, in their wisdom, decided that children were an unnatural strain to their parents. So they provided jails called school, equipped with tortures called education." Norman Douglas said, "Education is the state-controlled manufacture of echoes." Ooh, that one hurts. H.L. Mencken said, "School days, I believe, are the unhappiest in the whole span of human existence. They're full of dull, unintelligible tasks, new and unpleasant ordinances, and brutal violations of common sense and common decency." Galileo, way back, said, "You cannot teach a person anything. You can only help him to find it within himself." Deep. Mark Twain, "I'll never let schooling interfere with my education." I like that one. Albert Einstein said, "There's too much education altogether, especially in American schools." So at this point, you know, it's very interesting, and a comment that's been made a lot of times before about how the school system has often been used A, as a political tool, B, as a tool for indoctrinating. Back in the agrarian, the farm area, there was little schoolhouses where you learned to read, write, arithmetic, right? That was the basic thing so that you could survive, the 3 R's. And then when the industrial age came about, there was a huge lack of employees. The big businesses realized that they needed employees, and they were going to need it far into the future. So they started sponsoring schools and especially colleges, and helping to indoctrinate the whole concept of, hey, there's this big company that's here to save you. It's going to take care of you. all you have to do is go to school, get good grades. So that's basic training. Then you can get a good job. We'll give you on the job training, and then be loyal and faithful for 40 years. And then we'll retire you with a gold watch and a pension. And that was very, very attractive. That was like a drug back in the day. And then today, as you know, we went from being 95% self-employed, entrepreneurs and individual businesses, to 95% of the people have a job working for somebody else. And today we're seeing a little bit of a pushback on that. A lot of people are waking up that the system of indoctrination, I agree. We need to get arithmetic, reading, and writing. In fact, I'm absolutely shocked when I learned a couple years ago that my kids were not being taught handwriting anymore. And so the handwriting capability of kids nowadays is terrible, terrible. And just imagine if you don't have your electronics to either speak to or type on, what happens if there's no power, no electricity, no battery, and then you want to write somebody a message, you want to leave somebody a message, you can't do it. And anyway, that's the read and write and arithmetic. Everything else, and actually I did a paper in college about the death of the university, because it's so expensive to go to college, and everything that I really needed to use, 80%, 90% of what I learned in college, I've never used again. I never used again. It was irrelevant and immaterial. And so those quotes about education kind of hit home for me. And I think that you're going to see more and more, now everything, you can learn anything you want online virtually for free.
Where I used to have to make a phone call to find out an answer, I just go to Chat GPT now and it answers it immediately.
There you go. Yeah.
You have to test it to make sure it's right, but it's quick.
It's quick, and and the skill now is asking the right questions the right way to get what you want, because you can ask the same question and get different answers. But anyway, I'm going to pass the baton over to you, Ron.
Okay. Hey, can you give it a click, one more click to come up a little bit bigger?
Oh, sure.
Okay, that's better. Oh, that's good. Thank you.
You got it.
All right. A gift from my educated dad. The person who shared these quotes with me was my highly educated but poor dad. He also despised the school system, although he thrived in it. He became a teacher because he also dreamed of changing the system, but instead the system crushed him. He took his passion, tried to change the system, and ran into a brick wall. It was a system that too many people were making money in, and no one wanted to change, although there was a lot of talk about the need for change. Maybe my guidance counselor was psychic, because years later I indeed followed my father's footsteps. I just followed him into the same. I didn't follow him into the same system. I was taking that same passion and creating my own system. When my educated dad learned that Kim and I were struggling financially, doing our best to set up our own educational system, he sent us those quotes above. Scribbled across the top of the page of the quotes were these words: "Keep going, love, Dad." Up until that moment, I never knew how much my educated dad hated the system and what it did to young people. But after this gesture of encouragement, things began to make sense. The passion that was driving me then was the same passion that had driven him years earlier. I was just like my real dad, and I unwittingly picked up the torch from him. I was a teacher at core. Maybe that, where did he go?
Top of the page.
Okay, I was a teacher at Kohler. Maybe that's why I hated the system so much. In hindsight, I had become both dads. From my rich dad, I learned the secret of being a capitalist. From my highly educated dad, I inherited a passion for teaching. With this combination, I would now do something about the educational system. I didn't have the desire or the ability to change the current system, but I did have the knowledge to create my own system. Years of training begins to pay off. For years, my rich dad groomed me to become a person who created businesses and business systems. The business I set up in 1977 was a manufacturing company. We were one of the first companies to produce the nylon and Velcro surfer wallet, and came in bright colors. We followed the product with Shoe Pocket, a miniature wallet also made of nylon and Velcro that attached to the shoelaces, the shoelaces of running shoes. In 1978, jogging was a new craze, and runners wanted to place into a place to put their keys, money, and ID cards. I actually had one of those wallets.
I
I,
had both the wallet and the thing that goes in the shoes too, Ron. And
I'm having trouble picturing that. So you take a picture of one if you still got it. Uh, I had to look up this word, meteoric, which basically means, I think, crossing the sky fast, or had something to do with water. If y'all anybody knows that terminology,
yes,
you know what it
um,
is.
a meteoric success run is, a meteor, right? That
Yeah,
flies across. So a meteoric success means it was a huge and fast success.
got it. Got it. Thank you.
Hmm.
Our meteoric success was phenomenal, but soon the passion for the product line and the business drifted away. It began to weaken once my little company was pounded by foreign competition. Taiwan, South Korea, Hong Kong were shipping products identical to mine and wiping out the market we developed. Their prices were so low that there was no way we could compete. They were retailing product for less than it cost us to manufacture them. Our little company was faced with the dilemma: fight them or join them. My partners and I realized we couldn't win this battle. The company flooded the market with cheap products were too strong. A vote was taken and we decided to join them. The tragedy was that in order to stay afloat, we had to let go of most of our faithful and hardworking staff. That broke my heart. When I inspected the new factories we contracted with for our manufacturing in Korea and Taiwan, my soul died a little. The working conditions these workers were forced into were cruel and inhumane. I saw 5 workers stacked one on top of the other in a space where we would only allow one worker. My conscience began to bother me deeply, not only for the workers we let go in America, but also for our new workers overseas. Although we had solved the financial problem of foreign competition and begun to make a lot of money, my heart was no longer in the business. Consequently, the business began to suffer. Its spirit was gone because my spirit was gone. I no longer wanted to become rich if it meant exploiting so many low paid workers. I began to think about educating people to become owners of business rather than employees of business. I lost it. Workers.
I'll bring it at the top where it says at
Oh,
age 32.
I got it. Thank you. At age 32, I was beginning to become a teacher, but I didn't realize at the same time, but I didn't realize it at the same time. The business began to decline, not due to the lack of system, but because my lack of heart or passion. By the time Kim and I started our own new business venture, The wallet company had gone. Bring it up, will you? Downsizing coming. In 1983, I was invited to give a talk to the MBA class at the University of Hawaii. I gave them my views on job security. They didn't like what I had to say. In a few years, many of you will lose your jobs or be forced to work for less and less money with less and less security. Because my work, because my work caused me to travel the world, I witnessed firsthand the combined power of cheap labor and innovation from technology. I realized that a worker in Asia, Europe, Russia, or South America was really competing with the workers in America. I knew the idea of high pay and safe, secure jobs for workers and middle managers were an idea whose time had passed. Big companies would soon have to make cuts both in their number of employees and in the dollars they paid to work, simply to be able to compete globally. I was never asked back to the University of Hawaii. A few years later, the word downsizing became commonplace. Every time a big company merged with other companies, workers became redundant and downsizing occurred. Every time the work owners wanted to make their shareholders happy, a downsizing occurred. With each downsizing, I saw the people at the top get richer and richer. I like being rich, no problem with that. Depends on how you get there. And people at the bottom pay the price. Every time I heard somebody say, I'm sending my child to a good school so he or she can get a good, safe, secure job, I cringe. Being prepared for a job is a good idea for a short term, but it's not enough for a long term. Slowly but surely, I was becoming a teacher. Okay. Build a system around your passion. Although my manufacturing company had turned around and was doing well again, my passion was gone. Rich Dad summed up my frustration when he said, school days are over. It's time to build a system around your heart. Build a system around your passion. Let the manufacturing company go and build what you must build. I'm going to stop at that point, but I got a comment. Years ago, I read a book by Wayne Dyer, and if you don't know who it is, look him up on YouTube. And he was on a train going somewhere to a business meeting, I think. And inside the book was a little leaflet that was written on it was, never die with the music still in you. I sat there and pondered that thing for a while, because most of us have something that we always wanted to do, wanted to build, wanted to be, but because of inaction, we didn't do it. And I'm certainly an example of that. So never die with the music still in you. Action is the key, in my opinion. Go for it.
Very good. You've learned well from me, but you're still your father's son. You and your dad are teachers deep in your souls. Kim and I packed up everything and moved to California to learn new teaching methods so we could create a business around those methods. Before we could get the business off the ground, we ran out of money and were out on the street. It was that phone call to my rich dad, my wife standing by me, anger at myself, and a rekindling of the passion that got us out of the mess we were in. Soon, we were back to building a company. The company was an educational company using teaching methods that were almost the exact opposite of those used in traditional schools. Instead of asking students to sit still, we encouraged them to be active. Instead of teaching via lecture, we taught by playing games. Instead of being boring, we insisted our teachers be fun. Instead of teachers, we sought out business people who actually started their own companies and could teach using our style of teaching. Instead of grading the students graded the teacher. If the teacher got a lousy grade, the teacher either was put through another intensive training program or asked to leave. Age, educational background, sex, and religious beliefs were not criteria. All we asked for was a sincere desire to learn and to learn quickly. We were eventually able to teach a year's worth of accounting in one day. Although we mainly taught adults, we had many teenagers learning right alongside highly paid, well-educated business executives. Instead of competing on tests, we asked them to cooperate on teams. Then we had the team take a test, competing against other teams taking the same test. Instead of striving for grades, we bet money with winner take all. The competition and desire to do well as a team was fierce. The teacher did not have to motivate the class. He or she just had to get out of the way once the learning competition began. Instead of quiet at test time, there was yelling, screaming, laughter, or tears. People were excited about learning, and they were turned on by learning, and they wanted to learn more. We focused on teaching just two subjects, entrepreneurship and investing, the B and I quadrants. The people who wanted to learn those subjects in our style of education showed up in droves. We did not advertise. Everything spread by word of mouth. The people who showed up were people who wanted to create jobs, not look for jobs. Once I made my mind not to quit that night at the phone booth, my things began to move forward. In less than 5 years, we had a multi-million-dollar business with 11 offices throughout the world. We had built a new system of education, and the market loved it. Our passion had made it happen because passion and a good system overcame fear and past programming. A teacher can be rich. Whenever I hear teachers say they aren't paid enough, I feel for them. The irony is that they are a product of their own system's programming. They look at being a teacher from the point of view of the E quadrant rather than the B or I quadrant. Remember, you can be anything you want to be in any of the quadrants, even a teacher. We can be anything we want. Most of us have the potential to be successful in all of the quadrants. It all depends on how determined we are to be successful. As my rich dad said, passion builds businesses, not fear. The problem of changing quadrants is often found in our past conditioning. Many of us came from families where the emotion of fear was used as a prime motivator to get us to think and act in a certain way. For example, did you do your homework? If you don't do your homework, you'll flunk out of school and all your friends would laugh at you. If you keep making faces, your face will get stuck in that position. And the classic, if you don't get good grades, you won't get a safe, secure job with benefits. Well, today many people have gotten good grades, but there are fewer safe, secure jobs and even fewer with benefits like pensions. Many people, even those with good grades, need to mind their own business and not just look for a job where they will continue, where they will mind someone else's business. It's risky on the left side. I have many friends who still seek security through a job. Ironically, the march of technology continues at an ever-increasing pace. To keep up with the job market, each person will need to constantly be trained in the latest technology. If you're going to be re-educated anyway, why not spend some time educating yourself on the skills needed for the right side of the cash flow quadrant? If people could see what I see when I travel the world, they would not be looking for more security. Security is a myth. Learn something new and take on this brave new world. Don't hide from it. It is also risky for self-employed people. If they get stuck, sick, or injured, their income is directly impacted. As I get older, I meet more self-employed people my age who are physically, mentally, and emotionally burned out from hard work. The more fatigue a person endures, the less secure they become, and the risk of them having an accident also goes up. It is more secure on the right side. And I'm just checking the chats here just for any comments. And Jameson, you're absolutely right. Build a system around your heart, because a person, and I don't mean this in a sexist way, but a man on a mission is unstoppable. A woman on a mission is unstoppable. The irony is that life is actually more secure on the right side of the cash flow quadrant. By the way, how about those 11,000 government workers that were fired in the first month of the Trump administration? Government used to be considered the safe place to be. Jobs as a whole are no longer considered safe. For example, if you have a secure system that produces more and more money with less and less work, then you really don't need a job or need to worry about losing your job. To make more money, simply expand the system and hire more people. I apply the same principle when I teach about expanding your means rather than living below your means. Living below your means crushes the spirit, and I have always looked for ways to expand my means so that I can enjoy all that life has to offer. People who are high-level investors aren't concerned about the market going up or down because their knowledge allows them to make money either way. If there is a market crash and or a depression in the next 30 years, many baby boomers will panic and lose much of the money they had set aside for retirement. If that happens in their old age, instead of retiring, they'll have to work for as long as they can. Professional investors are people who risk little of their own money and yet still make high returns. The people who know little about investing take the risks and earn the least return. From my point of view, all the risk is on the left side of the cash flow quadrant. Any comments or thoughts there? Yeah, Fernando is talking about how he loves what we do. And for those of you who are entrepreneurs, and I'll tell you a secret, which I can say now, I never would say it out loud while my kids were growing up, because my philosophy is very much the same as this. And my kids never saw their dad go to work on a 9-to-5 job. In fact, he was usually home when they left, and he was usually home when they got home. And most of the time they saw me on the phone, right? Arranging real estate deals and mortgage deals. And so they got the bug early, and they watched what I did, and you'd be amazed at what kids absorb when they do it. My 10-year-old son was surfing Zillow and telling me about good deals out there. And if you can imagine that a 10-year-old can do that.
Mm-hmm.
And when my oldest son was, applying to colleges secretly, you know, I didn't care if he went to college or not. I didn't tell him that because I didn't want to give him the easy way out. But college to me is much more about the connections and the relationships you build necessarily than the things that you learn. Because as I said, most of what you need to know, you're going to learn in on the job training. And that goes for everybody in every quadrant. So he did end up going to school for entrepreneurship, which I was, very happy to see. And like I said, I think they have a completely different perspective. And I was just thinking as we were reading this that I should probably send them the updated copy that they may or may not have read, because usually, once they leave the house, they're doing their thing and they're reading their books and everything. And I don't know about you, but if you're like me, I have a short list of books that I really credit with being mind-changing, life-changing books. And Rich Dad, Poor Dad was one of them. Cashflow Quadrant was two of them. And another book that I really, and in fact, I'm rereading it right now because I've probably read it 3 or 4 other times, which is The 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. That was also a revolutionary book at its time. Anyway, um, to make more, grow your network, and your net worth grows with it. 100% true. And just like I said about college, Think and Grow Rich, another very, very powerful book. I would add that to that short list as well. What other books do you guys look at as being the number one or number two most memorable book? This is going to tell you a lot. What's the number one and or two most memorable book that you ever read? Put it in the chat. And Ron, at what point do you want to take over?
Oh, let's go to 162. I'll take over then. But I got a comment here.
Go for it.
Reading this one right here, this chapter, made me realize several things. One of which was I don't have a real good grasp yet on the workings of the quadrant. I need to go back and actually learn the workings so that I understand when my actions occur or my decisions occur, where in the quadrant am I making that decision? And I want to be on the right side a heck of a lot more than I have been in my life, and also right now going forward. I need to learn, I choose to learn the workings and the philosophy and the application of this quadrant. I really see the importance of it.
That's, there's two things that I observed about that comment. That's, first of all, we all need to have a mindset of always open-minded, wanting to learn. Okay.
Yep.
That should never go away at any age. In fact, I think that you age more when you learn less. The more you learn, okay? And I can talk about my father, who's 89 years old, and he doesn't stop learning. I mean, he consumes material at a high rate, and he just loves to learn. I hope that my kids also have that same hunger. They saw, like, when in the beginning years they complain about school. Oh, I hate school, I hate the work, it's boring. And now you understand better why. But I always said that don't worry, it gets better, because you're never going to stop learning. You just get to learn more fun things if you can get past the first stuff. But the other thing I observed from your comment, Ron, which I think is very cool, is notice, right, that now you're looking at the cash flow quadrants, and you're looking at what your growth is through the filter of the cash flow quadrants.
Yep.
And that's a much higher level filter than before.
Exactly. It's a guide also. You can look your decision to do this, that, and the other, especially in investments or work. You actually have a guide now that even if you don't know what you're doing, you can go to that guide and come up with a better choice.
Yeah. And that's why, constantly open mind learning, great books that you read. And I also constantly remind myself that I am the average of the 5 people that I spend the most time with, or that, I give the most attention to. Because maybe I have mentors that I have never met, right?
Yeah.
I happen to have met Robert Kiyosaki. I had lunch with him. And but there are other people, Napoleon Hill, a mentor, never met him, and I'll never get the chance to. But the more you look at from the framework or the filter of income, my income is going to be the average of the 5 people the income of the 5 people with whom I give the most attention to. My learning will be the average of the 5 people that I spend the most or give the most attention to. So that's another important filter, is constantly, and it took me a while. And by the way, it cost me a divorce when I realized that I was surrounding myself, or I wasn't surrounded by the right people that wanted the best for me, and I bet you everybody who's ever been divorced probably can say the same thing. And that's part of that selection of who you let into your inner circle, that you spend more time with, as opposed to the vast network that we build over time. I am seeing, by the way, some great books. The Richest Man in Babylon,
Yep.
another great classic book. As a Man Thinketh, great classic book. Mindset, Carol Dweck, another great author, and some of those books, we talked about Og Mandino, right? We talked about, John Maxwell. Why not have them as your virtual mentors and then see who you can pull into your life as real life mentors, that you can have that kind of conversation, that sounding board, that we all need to be able to think aloud in front of somebody that will give us back their honest and unbiased opinion, right? Because after all, I know a lot of times I go like, wow, man, thanks for telling me that, because that was a blind spot to me. I wasn't even thinking or aware of that point of view that I didn't think of while I was logically rationalizing something else. So
What
let's continue yeah, go ahead.
one other statement I came to a realization many years ago. Uh, we pay a lot of money to go to webinars and conventions and things of that nature because we want to glean what those people have to say. Uh, for instance, a lot of you will know Tony Robbins or Wayne Dyer or Napoleon Hill. How much would you pay to go and sit down with them and have their best work delivered to you? And how much would you pay for that? In person, how much would you do that? It's going to be a lot of money because they charge a lot of money nowadays, even though they're dead. A book does that very thing. You have the essence of that person that you can go over and over and over just simply by reading a book. So books aren't just pieces of paper. They're somebody's life work, and you can have it.
Yeah, that's very true. And not only do you go to these conferences to glean the information from the people at the front of the room, but I go there because I want to be in the room with like-minded, positive, open-minded individuals. And so, the activities that I choose to do, usually I run it through that filter. What kind of people are going to be there? Do I want to be around those people? What do they bring to the table in the global sense? It's not all about just the finances, but what are they going to add to your life? Bigger, deeper friendships, skills, economics, whatever it is. So to your question, which I was just thinking, Ron, if you knew that and you took whatever your life savings is in your account right now, that's how much it would cost for you to go spend one day with Robert Kiyosaki to tell you, you're gonna tell him what you do and what your goals are, and allow him to dissect it. The question that I have, would you be ready to do that, or do you need to do some self-dissecting? Because if that appointment was at noon today, are you ready for that? Or would you like to reschedule that? Give me a day or two, because I want to go there. I want to maximize those hours that I get to spend with somebody, knowing what I want to know.
Yep, understood.
So, and Manifa was just putting, the opposite can also be true, right? She says, that truth growing up, I just hung around the wrong crowd at times that change certain periods that I should have excelled to a different path, you know? And sometimes it takes us a little longer to wake up, or for somebody to open the door to the alternative. A lot of times, because we get stuck, when you grow up in the E quadrant, your parents are E quadrant, you tend to stay in the E quadrant. You grow up in the food stamp community, you tend to stay in the food stamp, the drug community, whatever the situation may be, both bad and good. Why is it that the wealthy tend to be able to pass things down a generation or two? Is because the environment that they hang out with, the education that they're exposed to, or the thought process that they're exposed to.
Mhm.
So anyway, any other comments?
Yeah, I have a quick question. It is 10:29. Do the upcoming meeting, do we need to stop this or we need to keep it or what?
Great point. Let me
In
just see where
respect
we,
for
yeah,
others.
no, that is a very good point because we've got a full schedule behind us.
I
Let's
enjoyed
see
the
here.
conversation and actually reading.
Well, Ron, first of all, you did an excellent job reading. I want to tell everybody, by the way, that this was Ron's debut. Okay, this was his cameo appearance, and Ron, you're a natural. Okay,
Thank you. Thank you.
it's wonderful to hear the readings in varied voices, and I want to encourage. In fact, drop in the comments in the chat if you would like to read, and you don't have to do this at first all by yourself. We'll tag team, but we definitely want to have different voices, different perspectives, and so forth. But Ron, my hat goes off to you. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you very
I'm,
much.
um, let me see something here. Chapter 8 starts. We're on 163, and we were on. We were on page 159. In the chat, everybody, I'm going to do this democratically. Put a 1 in the chat if you want me to blow through the last 3 pages, or put a 2 in the chat. Let it rest right here, and we'll pick it up next time. I love it. iPhone, identify yourself. Welcome to the club. I'm so happy you volunteered. I don't know who iPhone is, so we can't arrange for it, but if you will identify yourself, that would be awesome. Well, it looks like it's fairly unanimous. Unanimous. I got your name, Ron. Which Ron are you?
Probably Ron Samuels would be my guess.
That'd be awesome. Yes, you are right. Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Ron. Well, we're gonna make sure we're gonna make that happen. And like I said, we will support and help you. So I will, since the vote was unanimous, let's pick up and let's go straight through. Plus, I think it's a good way to finish up by completing the chapter. It's risky on the left side. I have many friends who will seek security through a job. Ironically, the march of technology continues at an ever increasing pace. To keep up in the job market, each person will need to constantly be trained in the latest technology. Boy, I could have lots of comments around that. In fact, I do a segment on my radio show called Jobs That Ain't Coming Back, like the toll booth operator, the encyclopedia salesman, the encyclopedia printer, etc. If you're going to be re-educated anyway, why not spend some time educating yourself on the skills needed for the right side of the cash flow quadrant? If people could see what I see when I travel around the world, I'm reading something over again, aren't I? It's more secure on the right side. Why the left side is risky. Let me jump ahead. If you can't read numbers, then you must take someone else's opinion, said Rich Dad. Boom. That's another fire drop in the comments. In the case of buying a house, your dad just blindly accepts your banker's opinion that his house is an asset. Both Mike and I noticed his emphasis on the word blindly. Most people on the left side really do not need to be that good with financial numbers. But if you want to be successful on the right side, then numbers become your eyes. Numbers allow you to see what most people don't see. Rich Dad went on. You mean like Superman's X-ray vision? Asked Mike. Rich Dad chuckled and nodded. Exactly. He said the ability to read numbers, financial systems, and business systems gives you vision that mere mortals don't have. Even he laughed at that silliness. Having financial vision lowers your risk. Boom again. Being financially blind increases risk, but you only need that vision if you want to operate on the right side. People on the left side think in words. To be successful on the right side, especially the I quadrant, you must think in numbers. It is very risky trying to be an investor while still thinking predominantly in words. Are you saying that people on the left side don't need to know anything about financial numbers? I asked. For most of them, that's correct, said Rich Dad. As long as they're content to operate strictly within the confines of being an E or an S, then the numbers they learn in school are adequate. But if they want to survive on the right side, understanding financial numbers and systems becomes crucial. If you want to build a small business, you don't need to master numbers. If you want to build a large worldwide business, numbers become everything, not words. That's why so many large companies are often run by bean counters, i.e., accountants. Rich Dad continued his lesson. If you want to be successful on the right side when it comes to money, you must know the difference between facts and opinions, and that's numbers and words. You cannot blindly accept financial advice the way people on the left side do. You must know your numbers. You must know the facts, and the numbers tell you the facts. Who pays to take the risk? Besides the left side being risky, people on that side pay to take that risk. What do you mean? I asked. Doesn't everyone pay to take risks? Nope, said Rich Dad. Not on the right side. Are you trying to say that people on the left side pay to take risks and people on the right side get paid to take risks? Yep, that's exactly what I mean, said Rich Dad, smiling. That is the biggest difference between the left side and the right side. That is why the left side is riskier than the right. By the way, that was another fire drop. The biggest difference is that people on the left side pay to take risks. People on the right side get paid to take the risks. I love that one. I'm going to post that one. I'm going to put that up. Sure, said Rich Dad. If you buy shares of a stock in a company who takes financial risk, who takes financial risk, you or the company? I guess I do, I said, still puzzled. And if I'm a medical insurance company and I insure your health and take on your health risk, who do I pay you? No, I said, if they insure my health and they take the risk, I pay for it. That's right, said Rich Dad. I have yet to find an insurance company that will insure your health or accident risk and pay you for that privilege. But that's what people on the left do. It's kind of confusing, said Mike. It still doesn't make sense. Rich Dad smiled. Once you better understand the right side, you'll begin to see the differences more clearly. Most people don't even know there's a difference. They just assume that everything is risky and they pay for it. But as the years go on and you become more comfortable with your experience and education on the right side, your vision will improve and you will begin to see what people on the left side cannot see. And you'll understand why seeking security to avoid risk is the riskiest thing you can do. And you will understand why seeking security to avoid risk is the riskiest thing you can do. You'll develop your own financial vision and not have to accept other people's opinions. You'll be able to see for yourself and know the difference between financial facts and financial opinions. It was a good day. In fact, it was one of the better lessons I could remember. It was great because it began to open my mind to things my eyes could not see. Numbers reduce risk. Without those simple lessons from my rich dad, I doubt if I could have taken my passion and built the educational system of my dreams. Without his insistence on financial literacy and accuracy, I know I could not have invested as wisely and with so little of my own money and earned such high returns. I always remember that the bigger the project and the faster you want to succeed, the more you need to be accurate. Boom. If you want to get rich slowly or just work all your life and let someone else manage your money, then you do not need to be as accurate. The faster you want to be rich, the more accurate with numbers you must be. Boom. The good news is that due to the advances in technology and new products, it's much easier today to learn the necessary skills for building your own system and quickly developing your financial literacy. You can go fast, but don't take shortcuts. To reduce your taxes, buy a bigger house and get deeper into debt so you can get a tax write-off. Bad advice. Your home should be your largest investment. You'd better buy now because the prices always go up. Get rich slowly. Live below your means. If you take the time to study and learn about the subjects required for the right side of the cash flow quadrant, such statements won't make much sense. It might make sense to someone on the left side, but not to someone on the right. You can do anything you like, go as fast as you like, make as much money as you like, but you have to pay the price. You can go quickly, but remember, there are no shortcuts. This book is not about answers. This book is about looking at financial challenges and objectives from a different point of view. It's not that one point of view is better than the other. It's simply smarter to have more than one point of view. In reading the following chapters, you may begin looking at finances, business, and life from a different point of view. And that concludes that chapter. And next week, we will pick up at chapter 8, How Do I Get Rich? Hey, Ron, thank you for being my co-pilot and reading with me today. I enjoyed it. You did a great job. And like I said, I look forward to who else wants to join us. You know, we've had Jameson, we've had a number of people. Of course, Fernando has read, Dr. Parker has read. Who else wants to read? Otherwise, who else has any questions or comments? This is the time to be heard because otherwise I'm going to be turning over the mic back to Fernando. Erica wants to raise her hand.
I want to say thank you, everybody, for your support. This was phenomenal for me. The growth at age 75 is wonderful. Thank you.
7.5? No way.
Yes, way. I expect a present coming soon.
God bless. When's your birthday?
The next one. Although this was the present. Thank you.
You're welcome, Ron. Thank you. Fernando.
Did I overhear it's your birthday today, Ron? Or
no, I'm just looking forward to it.
oh, great. Hey, Eric, Ron, wow, what an amazing read. I enjoyed it. You know, I like Ron style. And the reason why I say this and I highlight it because I dreamed about it, Eric, and you mentoring him through the process of reading, where you both handled it so amazingly well. It was an amazing to see that Ron. It sounds like you have read for so long here in our reading club because it was really expected. We anticipated this kind of read, and you definitely did a phenomenal job. I'm very impressed. Your clarity, your confidence. I mean, wow. I salute you. Congratulations, Ron.
Fernando,
Yeah.
tell the truth. Isn't it always fun to hear a little bit of that Southern drawl coming in the
Oh,
reading?
yeah. Exactly. It's
I love it.
exactly how I imagined it was going to be, Eric. And
good.
yeah, I like that accent. Is amazing. I mean, wow. Great job, Ron.
Appreciate you very much.
Yeah, because Eric, you know, he does so well with the events with Lou and you, and I was just picturing already this happening. You know, it's a dream come true for us as a team. Dr. G.W. Parker kind of pushed Ron a little bit, and Ron goes, "Okay, I'll do it." Great job.
Well, it took a village, and I appreciate you.
Excellent. Well, you're doing extremely well. A plus. That's my rating. A plus.
Thank you.
I second
All right, and I
that.
think everyone else had the same A plus too. I'm
Good,
pretty sure.
thank you.
So I'm going to stop the
Eric,
share.
thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity. As Ron mentioned, you know, the best way to learn is to teach. That's the deepest way to learn. So when you want to learn something and you feel like you've got it, can you teach it? Because when you can teach it, then you've mastered it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, I'm having a little background check. Let me turn off my camera for a little bit. Ladies and gentlemen, it looks like we are about 15 minutes away from. I'm getting a phone call here from Dr. G.W. Parker. We're about 15 minutes away from getting started. So let's send the invites and let's make sure we pack the house because let me take this call really quick. I'll be
Put
right
some
back.
music on and let's go out and send our invitations. All right, I'll be right there. I'll be right there.